Fabulous. First of all, thanks to Sybil for the invite. I was saying to Kim when I got the email, I don't know when it was, a couple of months ago when I read it, and I handed it to my wife, and she said, "You're going to do this, right?" Not a chance. But then I slept on it, and I thought, what the heck, let's give it a try. So thanks for the invite. I'm quite nervous, but very excited to be here. I've been on sabbatical since September, so this is actually the first time I've been in the classroom since probably this time last year, which is exciting as well. So the lecture I'm doing, and it is very much a lecture, or at least a portion of a lecture, is from an Introductory Biomechanics course that I teach. And I teach that course. I'm going to just sort of set the stage because it's important that you know who you are, who you're representing for me. So the course is in Human Kinetics and Recreation. It's a required course for the majority of our students. We do get some students from outside of our school, but for the most part, the students are in our program. There's two main groups of students. There's a group of physical education students who are actually in the last year of their degree, so are getting ready to graduate. And then there's a cohort of kinesiology students, and this is a second year course for them. So for the physical education students, this is the only biomechanics exposure they get. And for the kin students, this is actually a preparation course for an advanced course, which I teach them in their last year. And sort of collectively, I lump them all together as human movement specialists. So they're all have some interest in human movement for different reasons. The physical educators, obviously, most of them are going to go on and teach physical education, or at least work with children in some regards. And our kin students, there's a wide range of things which they may end up doing. Some of them will work as kinesiologists, so working in health and wellness and prevention. Many of them have aspirations to go on to physiotherapy, occupational therapy, medicine, so very much sort of those health professions. So that's the group of students I'm working with. The focus of the course is sort of twofold, and the first one is the one that this lecture is really more going to focus on. But many students coming into this course have had a bad experience with physics, okay? And I always ask on the very first day of lecture, how many of you hate physics? And I always put my hand up, and that because I hated physics, I absolutely hated physics. So, and we have a discussion about that in the first class, which we're not going to get into today. But many of them have had that bad experience with physics, and they don't really have an appreciation for the fact that biomechanics is everywhere in their world and influences how they move, how they interact, how they function. And that's my real goal, to make them to see that biomechanics is real. It's not this just subject that's in your course handout that you have to do. So it's everywhere. And then there's that whole communication piece. Can you communicate that to the general public? This won't really come up today at all. So this is where we're at. This is a mid-semester lecture, so I know the students very well. The majority of them I've taught in the previous semester. So I have a very good relationship with them. That's what makes this a little nerve-wracking. I don't know any of you, so I'm going to assume you're my class, even though from the keynote yesterday we shouldn't make any assumptions. Who we're teaching, but that's where we're coming from, and it's also a winter course, which will come into play with one of the activities that we do. How many of you know biomechanics? Probably none of you. So the good thing is about this particular lecture is you don't really need to know anything about biomechanics to understand what we're going to talk about. It's sort of entry level. The only prerequisite knowledge that you need, which the students would have gotten from a previous lecture, is what is this thing called the center of mass. And the center of mass is just a balance point, right? So if I take this pen, and we've all done this trick, my hands are shaking, so it's probably not going to work, right? But you can find a balance point for that pen, and that balance point is the center of mass. Let's get rid of the cat, right? That balance point is the center of mass, and if my finger is under that balance point, it'll balance. If my finger is anywhere else, the pen will not balance. okay? Our bodies also have a center of mass. So if I was big and strong enough, I could pick you up. Okay, no, I'm not going to try. I could pick Aya up on my finger and balance her, provided she was at the center. I was balancing her at the center of mass. Okay, all right? So that's the only prerequisite knowledge that you will need to sort of understand where we're coming from. Okay, so now we're going to start lectures. So you guys are now all students in HKR 3320, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're a little early. Normally we lecture at 2 p.m. We're going to go at 9, and we're just going to start. So any questions or comments, or if you don't understand anything as we go along, put up your hand, ask a question. You guys are going to get up and do some stuff. So, all right, let me switch gears a little bit. Okay, so the focus of the lecture today is balance and stability. All right? So in order to sort of understand and appreciate, we're going to just start with some definitions. Okay, just so we have a sense of what balance and stability is all about. And the words we tend to use interchangeably, okay? But for this course, for this term, balance is basically our ability to move in our environment without falling, okay? So the fact that you could all walk here from wherever you came from this morning without falling down means you have a certain amount of balance. The fact that you can sit in your seats right now and not topple over means you're balanced. Okay, so balance is related to our ability to move without falling. Stability, on the other hand, is an object or a person's ability to not be thrown off balance. So how stable are you? How hard is it for you to lose your balance and stumble and fall? Another way of thinking about it is the capacity of an object or a person, because we're talking about human movement here, to return to its original position after undergoing a perturbation. Now, perturbation is a term we haven't seen before. Perturbation is basically just a knock, or if you're walking and you stub your toe, that would be a trip. Anything that sort of throws you off balance will be a perturbation. And I may use that in the lecture, and that's what I refer to. So we have these two ideas of balance and stability. And you know, I've told you this many times, I'm not going to ever ask you to regurgitate the definition back. I'm not a regurgitate definition back person, but it's important that you understand the concepts, okay? Balance and stability. Now, even more important, and we've seen this many times throughout the term, is why does it matter? Why does it matter to you guys, or us, as human movement specialists, about balance, and why are we studying this? Well, there's several reasons, and I'll just step out of welcome to my classroom for a second. Normally I would ask them to give me some examples, but you're not human movement specialists, so I'm just going to give them to you. So why do we care? Well, balance is a fundamental movement skill. Okay, any of you done any coaching courses, done any work with young kids, you're probably familiar with fundamental movement skills. Physical literacy. Okay, the physical educators in the room are very familiar with physical literacy and fundamental movement skills. Balance is one of those activities, or one of those, I think there's 8 fundamental movement skills. Particularly in Newfoundland and Labrador, although it's across the country, right? Lack of physical activity in children, right? 40, 50 years ago, there was no such talk about fundamental movement skills because children got those skills naturally by playing outdoors and risky play and those types of things. It just happened naturally. Now, as we've become more sedentary, we have to teach kids these things. Also, if you do any coaching, right, it's one of the things that no matter what sport you're in, we have a part of every single practice where we work on fundamental movement skills, and balance is one of those. Injury prevention. Hey, what does balance and stability have to do with injury prevention? Any guesses?
Falling over hurts.
Right, falling over hurts, right? So if we lose balance or we become unstable, The bad thing that happens is we fall, okay? And as human movement specialists, we're all about injury prevention, okay? I very purposely selected this photo of seniors, older individuals. Anyone know why? I have a picture of seniors up here in relation to falling.
Because they
so often.
Right.
Yeah.
Seniors fall, they don't necessarily fall more. Well, they probably fall more, but they get hurt more often, okay? So for all of us in this room, remember we're an undergraduate group, if all of you fall today, probably none of you will get hurt, okay? But if we were talking about a group of people over the age of 65 that all fell, 1 out of 3 of them would probably end up in hospital with a fracture or something more serious, okay? So as human movement specialists interested in injury prevention, we need to understand balance, stability, and how we can improve it so that we can prevent these things. Sport performance, okay, improving sport performance. Many of you have worked with athletes, whether it be high-level athletes or introductory level athletes, and that balance skill is essential. Now it's different for different sports, obviously, but it's still a fundamental movement skill. And neat party trick. Where is this from? Anybody know? Michael Jackson. Smooth Criminal. Remember the video? I don't know when this was. Anyone know? I don't know. Back when Michael Jackson was big. 80s maybe?
I was gonna say.
The 80s?
Yeah.
Okay. So is this real?
Wow.
Okay. So we're not going to talk about this today. And something, again, I'm going to step out of lecture mode, something I should have told you. In this course, students are given a project that they have to do something, not write a paper, something that shows biomechanics in the real world. I'll step back into the lecture. This would be kind of a cool project topic.
Yeah.
Is it real? How the heck does it happen? Okay, so that's why we care about balance and stability. And for all of these, not this one, this is just kind of fun. For all of these, it's all about how do we help people improve their balance? How do we help them improve their stability? Okay? And in order to do that, we need to know the factors that actually influence it, right? So what are the things that alter or change a person's level of balance or level of stability? So this is where we're going to get up and do something. So we're going to divide. I didn't count how many people, 2, 4, 6, 16. So let's do 4 groups of 4. Okay. And every group is going to take 1. So let's have, I'm going to put you in 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys are going to do the first one. I'll tell you what you're going to do in a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys will do this one. Okay. Person standing with knees bent. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll do the last one. Okay. All right. For the last group, tandem standing is this. 1 foot in front of the other, heel to toe. Okay? So, what are you doing? I want you to think about which of the 2 scenarios in your situation, in which of the 2 scenarios is more stable, okay? Or in which of the 2 scenarios will it be easier for you to be knocked off balance? Everyone understand what I'm asking you to do? Okay. After you've figured yours out, then go on and try some of the others. Okay? It's important that you get up and do it. Okay? It's not a thought exercise, except for this one. This one is sort of a thought exercise, unless you happen to have a sumo wrestler and a gymnast that you can call on to come in and push them around. Okay? But you want to get up and do. Okay? So, what I always say to my class, don't do anything that you're not comfortable doing. Don't do anything that you feel is going to hurt you. Okay? So, and one more thing that I forgot.
Are you guys?
Okay, one more thing.
I guess I'm not.
One thing that I forgot. Don't just tell me which is more stable. Tell me why. why do you think it's more stable? Okay? You don't know anything about biomechanics of stability and balance. That's okay. The students don't either. Use your words. Use the words you have to tell me why do you think it's more stable? Okay, so I'm going to change it.
Thank you.
That right there. She's more stable.
Center has
And what?
a smaller point.
And then you can relate it back to.
Yeah, so you're right, you're right from the get-go, you talked about age. That is accurate.
The other issue is if somebody pushes me,
Solid. You've got gravity, what the as well as whereas
Because if the forest was like this, but if the forest was like this, then suddenly the difference has more.
yes, the knees are in the same.
Well, it depends on what the position is.
yeah, sure.
You got it. Some one way.
And then they got weight. Right? So the only factor that with this is
Right.
We're gonna have that discussion.
But that's only because
So
they're.
remember, once you figure the numbers out, try another one.
The weight will come lower.
Okay?
Again, that's fine. That's almost like standing up on 1.05.
Go to gymnastics.
But does it help you?
More stable.
So part of it
Probably on a balance
left, right?
I think if you were in a floor exercise or gymnast fans and ready to roll, I think they're both equally. And if you have two wrestlers, I think they'd probably be balance and stability. But once you're in motion.
And that's what I mean, the definition of balance.
They have that, where the infraction, the rotation or whatever, that happens. Yeah, right.
Now she's
Itself, and a lot of
Yeah.
What does that add to it?
more central
Yes.
make that stable. Plus the weight, it's the weight because gymnasts, I don't know if I've seen a tall gymnast. Right, these guys are usually fairly short, it doesn't add, the height of the guy just adds to your ability.
Technically, the more they bigger they get, the more stable they are, which makes them good in there.
But it does also depend on the position that they're in.
Yes, so for this one, you're gonna assume they're both in the same position. Right. Assume they're both standing.
So
They're both standing like that.
What about if they're on one leg?
If they're both on one leg, it should still miss the factor we're looking at.
That's right. The rest, they're not balanced, but I'll try to be out of nowhere.
Because that gets into skill, then, right? Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so let's come back together. Let's come back together and we'll have a, we'll have a little discussion. All right, so we're gonna just come up with a list of those factors. So the sumo wrestler and the gymnast. What did you guys, so which is more stable, a sumo wrestler or a gymnast? Assuming they're both in the same position. And so I'll step out of the lecture again. Ideally, in a lecture, every group would have done all four, so you would have had some experience doing all four. So what did our sumo wrestler gymnast group come up with?
So the sumo would be more stable because of its weight.
just more massive, right? And I usually bring something like this to lecture. This is not normally what I bring. It's heavier and it's just down the hall, so I can carry it. But, so these are two identical bottles, right? And it's someone else. Someone who didn't do, right? So there's Gavin, and we have two identical bottles. One is filled and one isn't. And which is more stable? So which is easier to push over? Just push them both, right?
I'd say this one is easier, which is the empty one.
Yeah, so it's a lot easier to push over the empty bottle because it's less stable, right? Stability is, you know, the ease with which something can be thrown off balance. So mass is one, oh my, okay, that's better. Mass is one of the factors that influences balance and stability. Okay? Can anyone think of an other example other than sumo wrestler and gymnast where we see people taking advantage of mass to be stable and balanced? Any football fans in the room?
Center.
So what football players are massive?
Big defensive guys.
The big defensive guys. I don't know anything about football either. Right? But, right? You see these people and you think, oh my, initially if you see them, you're like, how can they be in the NFL getting paid millions of dollars? They're so out of shape and they're so massive and they can't move. And that's exactly their role, right? They're designed to either protect the quarterback or destroy the other team's quarterback if they're on defense or offense or however that goes, right? But they're massive because they're extremely stable and they don't want to be moved because they're forming this wall to protect the quarterback.
You think of the baseball team too, the catcher, which usually a block your person, they're all
Yes.
well balanced in behind the plate. Right?
Yeah, absolutely, right? Okay. What was the next one? 1 foot versus 2. What did we come up with? Which is more stable?
2.
2 feet, right? 2 feet. Can you stand up?
I can. It's going to be an injury, but yeah.
Oh, okay. I won't push you here.
Okay.
So you just let's just stand here,
Yeah.
right? And what's your name?
Joel.
Joel, right? So if I just give Joel a little tiny tap, this is a little perturbation, right? And you can, when you go home, right, your roommates, try some of these things, be gentle though, okay? And now if I get Joel to stand on 1 foot, right, he's easy, I can easily knock him over. He's extremely unstable, thanks, on 1 leg. Why? That's the bigger question, right? Why is he less stable on 1 foot than 2?
Because the center is altered in terms of center.
Center is altered? So let's look at that, right? 2 feet, yeah, it is a little bit, but essentially this is in the same position. You're on the right track. You're on the right track.
Is wider?
Hmm?
The balance point is wider?
The balance point is wider. So it's the feet that we're changing, right? And we're not going to call that the balance point. We're actually going to call that the base of support. So the base of support, we're changing the base of support when we go from 2 feet to 1. Okay? So a second factor that influences balance and stability is actually the size of your base of support. The larger your base of support, the more stable you will be. Okay? So obviously we can have 2 feet, we can have 1 foot. How else can we, and sorry, I should tell you what the base of support is. So the base of support is basically the area surrounding all my contacts with my environment, right? So when I'm standing on 2 feet, it's the area surrounding my 2 feet. 1 foot is the area surrounding just the 1 foot. How else could I change my base of support? I could stand up on my toes, very unstable here. 1 toe, even more unstable.
Could you, I'm just thinking, like, support yourself with your hand?
Much more stable. What's your base of support now as you're sitting? Chair, feet on the floor. You're extremely stable, okay? if I were to lie here, now what's my base of support?
That's
The whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm very, very stable in that position. That's the principle that canes and walkers go on, right? If you have any older parents or friends or whatnot who have to use a walker because their balance is off. Think about what a walker does, right? Versus a cane, right? So people will usually start with a cane, right? Because it makes their base of support slightly bigger, but then as their balance gets worse and worse, or as their inability to stay mobile gets worse and worse, they may progress to a walker, which gives them an even larger base of support. Okay, so the size of the base of support is another factor. What about knees bent versus knees straight? What group did that? You guys. Yeah?
Knees bent was more stable.
Knees bent is more stable, right? So again, try it. Knees bent, knees straight, little push. You're much more stable in this position. Why? Any ideas?
I think it's because you have more ways to go. When you're standing with your legs straight, you can only kind of go down. If you're standing and your knees are already bent, you can go up down to the side.
Okay, so your ability to do sort of a balance reaction is better when you're lower. Absolutely. How do we? Yes, that's quite the one we're getting at here, but certainly in this position you're much quicker, right? That's the position you're in a lot of sports, knees bent. It's easier to get going from this position as opposed to being up here and then having to get down, so it's easier to react. But as far as it affecting stability,
Well, we kind of came to the conclusion there's two things. One is that you're lowering your center of gravity, and also when you squat, you tend to open your leg a little bit, so your base gets a little bit.
yeah, you absolutely can open your base, but even if your feet close together, knees bent, you're going to be more stable because your center of mass, your balance point is lower. And the lower your center of mass is, the more stable you actually are. There's some biomechanics behind that, which is one of the things I took out of the lecture, because you need to know moment arms and all that kind of stuff. So just 3 bikes to show, right? None of us have ever ridden this one. Okay. But as, well, I don't know, has anyone ever ridden any farming?
There's a guy in town that has one, the chef, the chef has one.
Steve Watson?
Yeah,
Does he?
yeah. Picture of him riding one anyway.
Yeah, I think the Christmas was Friday, actually.
Cool.
I just like that you can say the chef and somebody knows.
The chef with the bicycle, I mean, there's only one chef with a bicycle. So, very unstable, right? Because it's so high off the ground. Has anyone ever ridden a recumbent bike? These are actually in the wrong order, right? This one, and then this one, which is lower to the ground, is going to be actually much more stable.
In the case of the 19th century bike there, I'm curious about whether the size of the wheel has any effect in counterbalancing the damage to balance caused by getting them so high off the ground.
I would say no. So the size of the wheel was, and I didn't know this before this morning when I went on to Wikipedia, because this is a slide that I've added for today. The size of the wheel was to give it more efficiency, so you get greater rotation of the wheel for each pedal stroke, so you got greater speed. And then the size of the wheel also made it a little bit more comfortable for shock absorption. But the risk of toppling side to side was quite high. And then someone invented gears, and then they could actually lower the wheel down and get the same sort of type of efficiency. Okay, so that is height of base of support, or height of center of mass. Okay, so lower your center of mass is, the more stable you are. Last one. Tandem stance versus normal. Which was more stable?
Depending on where.
Give us your first answer. Give us your first answer.
The first answer was
Normal. Normal is more stable, right? And again, everyone should, in class, everyone would have tried this, right? But you feel very stable in this position. You get into this position right away, you're a bit wobbly, okay? And why? Did you say?
Base of support was much narrower.
Right. So again, it seems like this one is another one related to size of base of support. So we're making our base of support a little bit smaller, right? This one is a bit tricky though, because now there's actually two factors that we're manipulating. And I'm going to get someone else to stand up. Can I get you to come up and let me okay. Push you a little bit?
Sure.
Peggy. Okay, so Peggy's gonna stand with her feet normal, okay? And I'm just gonna give her a tiny perturbation to the side, and she's fairly stable, right? And if I come from behind and give her a little push, right? And it was, right? She was much more unstable, right? Now go into tandem stance, okay?
Here we go.
So if she goes that way and I push her from behind, she's now all of a sudden much more stable again, right? She's not great, but she's more stable than she was in 2 feet versus if I breathe on her very slightly, right? She's way more unstable. Perfect.
I suck at it.
Thanks. Okay, so now in this situation we seem to be having, there's something slightly different. It's not just the size of the base of support anymore. This one is base of support. I'm going to write it down first. It's the location of the base of support. And I'm just going to abbreviate it for time. Location of the center of mass relative to the base of support. So it's not just how big is your base of support, but it's where is your center of mass relative to your base of support. I know we're good. So this is your center of mass, this is your base of support, okay? We're most stable when our center of mass is right in the middle of our base of support. So if we're here, this is a situation standing with hands resting on something, right? My base of support is right in the middle. I'm extremely stable. We become unstable as our center of mass gets closer to the edge of the base of support. So the closer it gets to the edge of the base of support, the more likely it is that we're going to fall. Well, in this situation, right, the center mass has all kinds of room to move. Very stable. 1 foot. Now look how tiny my base of support is. I've got very little room for my center of mass to actually move before it gets outside my base of support. I'm going to come to the chalkboard now. I don't have the luxury of a chalkboard where I lecture. In the situation where we're standing normal, there's our base of support. Okay, got lots of room side to side for my center of mass to move. Very stable side to side. Relatively less room front to back, depending on how big your feet are. So I'm a little bit more unstable front to back. There's less room for my center of mass to move. If I go to tandem now, my center of mass is going to roughly be in the same position. I've got lots of room now for my center of mass to move front to back before I get really unstable. Okay, so Peggy was more stable front to back in tandem standing. Side to side, again, very little room. Okay, so it's not just how big is your base of support, but it's where is your center of mass relative to your base of support. And our body is actually continually controlling our center of mass position to keep it stable.
As you showed, a lot of this depends on the direction of the force applied to you, right?
Absolutely.
So you see a fencer who comes forward and takes a big lunge.
Yeah.
And that's because the force is directed along the axis.
Yeah.
Of the,
But if they were to get hit from a lateral, they topple over.
Right.
Because you don't get hit that way in fencing, so you don't need to be terribly stable.
The flatness of the base also have be a factor? My dad lost his big toes and in an accident, so therefore he lost his balance, even though he had his feet for a base. He lost his balance with his feet as a result of it.
Yes,
right?
because we actually, our big toe is actually central. It's absolutely, it's where we generate a lot of those forces that actually help us to control how our center of mass moves. Because the body is always, we're always controlling our center of mass position, even though we don't know. Even though we don't know. And the big toe is one of those parts of the body that's actually key to being able to do that. Yeah.
It's like the strength of the muscle would have something to do with it as well.
Absolutely. So these things, everything equals. So you've got a person who's the same, all the same abilities, same strength. You know, if everything else is equal, then we manipulate balance by controlling size of base of support, location of center mass, base of support, mass, and the fourth one, which I can't remember at the moment, the height, right? But then there's all of these other things as well. So if you, like, that's what happens as we get older, right? Muscle weakness tends to start to develop, and then we have less ability to actually control the center mass. Okay, so in interest of time, we're going to finish with, and I'm going to give you a homework activity. So it's winter now, right? So, well, it's actually so as you're walking home, okay, as you're walking home, and this is where we'll pick up next day, right? We want to avoid this, and we know now in Newfoundland, right? We change the way we walk in ice and snow to avoid this. So as you're walking home, pay attention to how you do that. How do you alter how you walk? And then when we come back on Wednesday, or whatever day it's going to be, we're going to pick up there and figure out why. How do you do it, and then why do you do it? Why do we walk that way? Awesome. We're done. Done. So I hope you learned something about biomechanics. And then it is kind of everywhere, and it is kind of cool. I'm a bit biased. That's how I teach it every day.
I found myself really getting caught up in imagining different scenarios related to biomechanics. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a sign that this works. Mm-hmm. I teach in English literature, where one of the easy things for us to do is to get people talking. Well, in theory, we get good conversations going on often, I would say. We're talking about verbal art forms, so language is already something we're pretty good at in facilitating as professors. But I would love to get more activity of this sort into an English literature classroom, because I know that after an hour and 20 minutes or whatever it is, kind of the day, students are sometimes just tired of talking and listening. Yeah. Do you have any suggestions for how this could work outside of a biomechanical context?
Honestly, no. Because I've often thought to myself, I have an unfair advantage.
Yeah, so
because I teach in this thing that is real, and people it is them, and it's things they do every day. Yeah. And I've often thought, how would I do this if I were in English? I don't know. Does anyone? Do you have a suggestion?
Or somebody?
Yes.
One idea would be to give them this activity as a pair or something, and then write a creative story about it. So as that could be something if you're doing a presentation. Good presentation skills might be getting in a group and doing a presentation, so they have to verbally talk about their experience in the different situations. So you're getting them to actually move through guidance in a presentation like you provided, similar perhaps, maybe just with the 4 or 5 diagrams that you gave at the end there. And they have to do something creative with that experience that they've just done, whether it be verbal, written, through a video, whatever the case may be. So that could be something that could work in other subject areas.
Anyone else?
So if I understand correctly, it's the activity could be the same, but it's how you're not, the discussion is often, I assume in your class, about the material that's being conceptualized, examined, whereas to incorporate sort of more bodily experiences, you might get them to do something that seems like a step outside of the course material, but then you bring it back through.
Yeah, so they have to write creative, so if it's a creative writing class, for example, they have to do a creative writing piece about what they learned from that activity.
or if it's something that they've read that might be older, like a classic or something like that, have them write creatively with more of a modern flair, but the theme and tone remains the same. You know, the storyline ultimately is the same, but with something a little more modern.
Right.
I mean, like, when I was I had this English teacher back when I was in high school, and, you know, we used to get Shakespeare and stuff, you know, and every high school kid hated it, really. But it's like one thing that sort of like really, I guess, sort of brought it to life was used to have, you know, sort of just a box of props, sort of just in the classroom or whatever. And so, I guess one thing is trying to get the students to buy into this sort of idea, but you can't bring physicality to something that's very, very abstract because, you know, one, you're getting people, I guess, to, you know your literature and, you know, like act out what's going on, but you also get that creative sense of people are, you know, what do they assume the characters will look like, or what, you know, you start getting this process, but you're bringing a physicality up to it as well. Because, I mean, like, even theater really is just a combination of, like, you know, expressing yourself through actions and words that, you know, you speak. So that's sort of just combination of bringing something that's, like, intangible to, like, a physical realm, like, no matter what, while allowing students to, like, be creative and sort of do their own thing is, that's something I was kind of interested in.
I mean, depending on the course, in this class, they do this project, and I encourage them to be creative, and they're actually, I discourage them from writing paper, and they actually they have to work harder and do much better to get an A in a paper than they do if they choose the other route, because I want them to be creative. And I've had students write me like amazing poems about the mechanics of the free throw. Okay, people do rap songs, and people write original songs about biomechanics. So is there that opportunity to pair it with another course? Pick another course that you're doing, be creative about it. I've often thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could pair like biomechanics with an English class that people are taking, so that they get sort of credit for the creativity, because some of them are really, really creative, and they come to biomechanics and they don't just think, oh, it's just not for. Can we encourage them to sort of pair those skills? So I don't know if that's a possibility. Too. Yeah. Any other?
Because you could have just as easily taught that by just lecture style, you know? There was a lot of movement here and a lot of
it's really boring.
Experience, yeah. But you could have just given definitions and given examples and stuff. So it's, you know, yeah. Interesting.
Good. Do your homework. All right. Thank you so much.